this gospel reminds me of the story that Susan Conroy tells. I don't know if you remember Susan Conroy. She came a few years back and did a presentation here. I think it was the Year of Mercy. I don't remember. But she had worked with Mother Teresa over in India, and Mother Teresa had asked her, because she was an artist, to draw a picture of a child in the hand of Almighty God, and put that quote from Isaiah about, I've carved you on the palm of my hand. And so she did this, and she showed it to Mother Teresa, and Mother Teresa saw the 5 fingers that were there, and what does she do? She takes a pencil and writes on it, each finger, "You did it to me. You did it to me." Susan's initial reaction was, "You're messing up my art." But then she came to think about it, it's like, this is Mother Teresa. So she said, "Oh wait, now I get to say that Mother Teresa and I did this art together." That it's a group work. But that 5-fingered prayer of Mother Teresa, "You did it to me. You did it to me." And of course, that was the whole theme of her life, so that she could focus on working with the poorest of the poor, recognizing Christ's presence there. Christ's presence in the suffering, in the lonely, in the dying. Christ's presence in those around her. And that's why she was able to walk into a room filled with thousands of people, and every person there felt as if they'd had a personal encounter with Mother Teresa. And this is an invitation of Jesus to us today. You did it to me. Do we recognize God's presence in the people around us? He is present somehow in their suffering. You remember the story about how Mother Teresa would say about, look at Jesus suffering on the cross. He's leaning down to kiss us. And when we suffer, we're close enough for him to kiss us. And that woman who had said, "Tell Jesus to stop kissing me." That we look and we see there's some sort of union, closeness to Christ. At least the potential through our suffering. And every person suffers. So we can look at every person around us and say, somehow they bear the presence of Christ, whether they know it or not. And then we can then reflect on that for ourselves. Do we see in our suffering an opportunity to grow in closeness to Christ and Christ's presence, even if we can't understand it or see it in that moment? Sometimes the worst of sufferings is not the physical suffering, but the mental or the emotional suffering that we experience with maybe a child or a grandchild who's far from the faith. Maybe the agonies of looking at a loved one who is in the hold of addiction. Maybe even with the loss of a loved one. That woundedness that we have in our souls, and that is the presence of Christ. You did it to me. Do we recognize God here present? I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. In our needs. Those things that we hate the most about ourselves because we'd rather not have to need. We'd rather be independent, but in those needs, there is the presence of Christ. May it form us, shape us, to be able to look at the people around us to see, here is Christ. And even in our own suffering. And remember those words that Mother Teresa said over and over and over again. You did it to me.